Mercy Housing. My name is Amelia Lang, and I'm on the marketing department here in the Denver office. And today we're premiering Mercy Minutes, which are updates from the Mercy Housing world. And in today's episode, we'll be catching up with President and CEO Jane Graf. So Jane, you've been out of the office traveling quite a bit in the past few months. Can you tell us what you've been up to?
Absolutely. So I think many of you know that we're in the midst of a shift in governance, and the sisters are starting to think about their long-term role and how that's going to change over time. So one of the things that I've been doing along with Sister Lillian, who continues to work on a consulting capacity with us, I'm sure many people out there would be happy to hear that, as well as Michelle Mamet and Sarah Riggs. We've been visiting every one of our sponsors at their offices and their leadership teams. And these are the sponsors of, the long-term sponsors of Mercy Housing, communities of Catholic sisters, we can talk about who they are, but each one of them has a leadership team of their own that basically guides what they do, and they're all over the country. They're in St. Louis, they're in Providence, Rhode Island, they're in Belmont, South Carolina, they're everywhere. And so we've been visiting them, each one of them. Omaha was the founders, are the Sisters of Mercy out of Omaha, and talking about this governance change. It's a big deal. It's really a big deal because the sisters are starting to relinquish their control and shifting that responsibility to the board of directors. That's happening over a period of years. And we, of course, want to make sure that they stay involved with Mercy Housing in all the ways that they have in the past, just not necessarily in an active governance role. And so we're talking about that, and we're sort of celebrating 35 years of their good work and what they've accomplished. And I have to tell you, it is really fun because these women, they're doing amazing things. They continue to do amazing things. And having the chance to sit with them and reflect back on 35 years of progress, talk a little bit about the old days and how it was in the beginning. And it's a privilege to be able to do that. And it really does solidify our roots as an organization with these women that have done just phenomenal things, continue to do phenomenal things. And so that's a big piece of what I've been spending time doing out of the office. But I think it's important that everybody knows also that we're involved in a lot of national organizations that support the work we do. And we're a major national player in those organizations. Stewards of Affordable Housing for the Future, we call that SAFE, for those of you who've heard that word. I'm the chair of that board. It's 13 of the largest not-for-profits that do this work across the country, that we're all multi-state. We get together 4 times a year, share best practices, talk about emerging issues. They are the ones that provide us with our support for our Mercy Advocacy Council, our MAC. Andrea Ponser, that name might be familiar to some of you, is on their staff. And so there's a serious linkage there, and they're very, very involved in making sure that we stay in the forefront as organizations and what's going on nationally, and that's so important now with all the uncertainty at the federal level. So that, Housing Partnership Network, it's another national organization. We're actively involved in that. Some of you have been to the conferences that they put on twice a year. Again, helps to link us with our colleague organizations across the country so that we don't stay isolated. We're part of a broad group of organizations that are working to do really good work on behalf of very low-income people across this country. And we share, as I said, best practices, new ways, ideas. We come together, we create financial funds that do this work. So I've been spending a lot of time. It seems like June is a big month for all these meetings, and it takes you out of the office a lot. But I think it's important that people do know we're really active in this stuff, and there are opportunities for people to link up nationally. We're not in this alone, and I think that's important.
Well, yeah, everything you said makes sense. And kind of to that point of that in this period of collaboration, like, what is your outlook on the proposed 2018 budget in regards to affordable housing?
Well, the Trump budget, proposed budget, is a train wreck. I mean, it basically wipes out most HUD programs, and it's horrific. So, having said that, now, just so you all know, it has nothing to do with the low-income housing tax credit. It doesn't affect that. That is something that will be dealt with in tax reform, which is, a big looming question mark and probably will not happen. Certainly not in 2017, who knows when. So I just want people to be aware that it doesn't impact that. What it impacts is home funding, which is a major funding source for many states and cities, especially states that don't have their own source of affordable housing finance. A lot of the southern states really don't actively engage in, putting together bond measures that support housing. Many cities and states across the country that we are active in do. Even Denver recently passed a bond measure. It won't affect that, but it wipes out home, it wipes out CDBG. These are old, community development block grant funding. These are old programs that have been around since the 80s, in large part, that have supported housing development for low-income people in various ways for a long time. So they're incredibly important resources. It underfunds rental subsidies. That's one of the major concerns, because we know how important rental subsidies in all their forms, Section 8 and the various forms, and people rely on it. I mean, it's essential. And there are cities across the country that are more and more unaffordable, and so these subsidies are the only way people can survive. The advocates who are on the Hill on a regular basis tell us there's never been a budget that came out of the White House that was ever passed in the form that it came out.
I feel that the fear, though, is that they propose these drastic cuts of, $8 billion, and then what eventually passes is $3 billion, which is still devastating, but seems reasonable compared to the original.
I think that that's a reasonable fear, and that's a likely strategy.
Going on to a happier note, what new communities have recently opened, and what new communities are scheduled to open in the next few months? Yeah,
well, there's so much that's been recently funded, or is in construction, or is recently opened and had a groundbreaking or an event of some sort. It's the list is incredible. I'll give you a few highlights because I don't, going through it, is going to be too much. So into the Chicago office. In Mercy Housing Lakefront, our Danville community, which is a vets community on the vets campus in Danville, just opened. Beautiful property, just renting up. Families that have vets that need service. Took a long time for that to happen. Very exciting. The old Sterling property, we call it Sterling for years. It's now called the Lofts at Arthington. It was the old Sears and Roebuck catalog distribution plant, which is kind of cool because it's got this history that's really interesting. Finally opened. I think it's 180 family units. Beautiful building, historic renovation. Took a really long time. Really exciting. So those two in that area. In the northwest, up in Seattle, Othello Plaza opened, right on the light rail. Second light rail property that we own. Soon we'll have a third. We're looking to do more work on the light rail. It's a large property. I want to say it's 150 units. I could be wrong there. Family, beautiful property. We had a board meeting there recently, and it was great. We all took the light rail. It was just a tremendous experience, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to do there. In Atlanta, the Reynoldstown property, senior property, 70-some units, opened in the historic Reynoldstown neighborhood. It is a beautiful property in Atlanta, and we had a major grand opening there. And then, of course, California has a lot of activities. Southern California, We're basically, we just bought St. Mary's Towers, which is 140 senior units in Long Beach, very exciting. Mather Veterans Village, first phase completed, second phase underway, that's veterans in Sacramento on a campus, on a veterans campus, hugely successful. San Lorenzo, which is in the Bay Area, in the East Bay, a 78-unit senior property just opened called The Arbor. Lovely property. New Dana Strand, which is in Wilmington, which is in Southern California again. It's I think the fourth project in that grouping. 78 family units. That's under construction, just about to be finished. Bill Sorrell community, 6th and Howard. A lot of people have seen the Bill Sorrell community. Fabulous architectural gem, literally on the corner of 6th and Howard Street in San Francisco, which is really transformative in that neighborhood. And that just opened and is getting rave reviews, and it's family housing in a neighborhood that hasn't historically been very welcoming to families. So there's more. There's a lot more. I could go on and on, but we're very, very busy, and and I think that's the really exciting thing. There's a lot of really exciting things happening.
Thanks for taking the time, Jane, and thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.